How do you paint the portrait of a man? How do you capture what it was really like to walk with someone for years? We are each a mosaic of the stories and adventures in our life, and as we scroll back through pictures, we are flooded with the memory of more than just one moment, but whole days and experiences that will last forever. Hello and welcome to Young Living's podcast, The YL Drop. My name is Jacob Young, your host. Young Living is the world leader in producing and distributing premium essential oils, and this podcast will provide you with drops of information about Young Living, including stories, history, product information, lots of little fun facts, and even more. And we also give you an opportunity to win some cool prizes. In studio with us today is the Director of Special Projects, Mr. John Whetten. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah.
How are you doing? Yeah,
I'm doing pretty well. Thanks for having me.
You're more than welcome. So what exactly do you do as the Director of Special Projects?
So it's kind of a silly title. I'm totally happy to admit that it's a title that really doesn't make any sense. But back when I was working for your dad, he would just basically throw whatever he wanted to at me, and I would have to kind of figure out how to do it. So that's how the title came about, and so it's just stuck.
Nice. And so while you were working for my dad, you were his photographer, essentially, correct?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I worked for Young Living, but I guess you could say one of my primary roles was as a photographer or a documentarian. So whether that was video or photography, I more or less handled a lot of those projects. I preferred photography. Photos tend to get used way, way, way into the future, and video kind of can fall by the wayside pretty easily. So the photos are pretty are what I love the most, only because I know that it's like the most bang for your buck, I guess.
So photos are timeless, where videos can kind of get outdated.
I mean, I love photos because they're just like literally just one little instant of time, right? But yet they can tell a whole story, even though the shutter was only open for maybe 1/500th of a second, but there's like a whole story there.
You captured some of the most iconic shots of my dad. What were those shots?
Yeah. So there's, so if I walk through the building, and I also just came back from Ecuador a couple of days ago, and so I was at the Experience Center down in Ecuador. Also, I've been in the Experience Center here at GHQ, and going down to the school, the Young Living Academy. It's pretty obvious which photographs are kind of like everybody's favorite. And there tend to be, I mean, there are maybe more than three, but there tend to be three that like really get used over and over and over and over again. And so those three are your dad in the tea fields in Taiwan.
It's a beautiful shot.
And then there's another shot of him that's kind of sunsetty, with a row of black spruce trees behind him. He's in a field he's in a field, but then there's trees behind him. And then, of course, the photo that everybody knows is he's watching the oil bubble up in the distillery at the Northern Lights Distillery in Fort Nelson.
So can you talk a little bit more about those photos, like the setting and what all you were doing to get those shots? And
okay, so yeah, I'll probably start off with the tea fields. It's like there's that misty tea fields. So we were in Taiwan, and we were working on the sleek tea product, and so we had gone over there to look at different vendors and find the best tea we possibly could. And we were looking at this vendor that had they sold an oolong tea. Is that how you say it in English?
Yeah. I think it's oolong. Yeah.
Okay. And so I mean, this tea farmer, he had won so many awards for his tea. Like it was really fun to hear him tell the stories of going to all of these tea. There's tea competitions. Did you know that?
No,
there's like,
I had no
There's
idea.
like tea competitions, and there's like World Olympics for tea, basically. But
Okay.
I mean, you like slurp tea. And anyway, so we were there and we were learning all about tea, and then we went out to these tea fields. And because we, of course, wanted to see where it was grown,
Yeah.
we wanted to see the process of how the tea is harvested and processed and stored and transported, the whole thing. And so we're out in the tea fields, and so Taiwan is a very mountainous island. I mean, it just rises up out of the ocean. And so in the afternoons, when the warm air comes in off the ocean and rises up against the mountains, it hits cooler air. I mean, the air cools as it rises, and eventually you hit this condensation point. And so it's like out of nowhere, we're just up there, and it was sunny, and then all of a sudden this mist rolled in, and I thought, oh, this is so cool. And I mean, luckily your dad was like in a clean shirt, and he had his hat, and like everything, he looked really good. And so I said, hey, Gary, just go up into the rows and just walk back and forth for me. And so I kind of directed a little photo shoot, like completely unexpected, and had no idea that like those photos would become as iconic as they have. I mean, I was thinking about like sleek tea as a product. I wasn't really thinking about like we're going to use this series of photographs for like decades into the future. So anyway, it's been fun to just see those photos used over and over and over and over again.
Oh, that's lots of fun.
Yeah.
What about Fort Nelson?
So there's a photo. This one's not quite as used, but I mean, I see it fairly often. And your dad's just standing in a field, and the sun is kind of setting behind him over his shoulder, and there's the row of black spruce trees. I think I might have already described that, but yeah, there's a row of black spruce trees behind him. Well, the funny thing is, so that shot was taken on the day that the concrete was poured for the footings of that distillery, and Gary wanted to shoot a video for the members to be like, hey, we're here, because Valor was out of stock because we couldn't get black spruce. And so he like really wanted to help people understand, hey, construction has begun.
Yeah.
Like he just wanted to like shoot this video to like tell people, hey, things are moving. I'm going to get Valor back online as soon as I possibly can, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I mean, my job is to make your dad look as good as possible. And sometimes we were often at odds about how a shot should be set up, or like where he should stand, or like should we shut off some machine in the background that was making noise? He's like, no, leave the machine running because it's like authentic. And I'm like, but I can't hear you. So that's like, so there was a lot of kind of back and forth on a lot of things. But I was like, Gary, let's just go stand over here in the field a little bit. It's gonna look amazing. And he's like, no, let's like stand in the middle of all the concrete. And I'm like, no, it's not gonna look as good. And there's so much noise, no one will even be able to hear you because there's a concrete pump running.
Just
and
add subtitles.
I know. So anyway, after actually quite a bit of like arguing, your dad capitulated. And so we go over and stand in the field. He's like, I don't like this. Like, I want to be facing this other direction. I said, no. Like, you're going to stand there. I'm going to be here. And I said, Gary, let me just fire off one shot just so I can show you what it looks like. And so he stood there, and I was like, you might as well smile. And so he smiles. So I really only have one frame of him standing there in that field, and I only the sole purpose I shot that photograph was to prove to him that it looked good. And again, we've used
good photo too,
a lot of times, and it was only to like so he would stop arguing with me.
So when you showed him the photo, what did he say?
He's like, "Wow, that looks really good." And then we shot a video, and yeah, that's how that photo came to be. So.
That's awesome. So there's two photos that you actually took at Fort Nelson. That one that you just shared and described, but there's also the one of him looking and watching the oil bubble up after the first distillation.
So the first shot, the shot that I just described was taken right before the first snow. So it was probably late October or anyway. It was just as it was starting to get really cold, and then your dad worked building that distillery. Obviously, there was a huge construction crew involved as well. But your dad and the whole team, they worked all winter long.
Yeah.
And they even tried to convince him, hey, wait, you just get the footings poured, get a few things done. But once it freezes, it freezes hard, and it's so expensive to build anything. They're like, just wait till spring. April will roll around and things will thaw out. And he said, no. We're going to work all winter long. I'm going to bring Valor back online. That's...
I remember him walking around with the team with blow torches, literally unthawing the ground to keep... it was crazy.
And so the whole team worked through the winter. And then finally, the distillery was put together enough that, there's a boiler there that's producing steam, and there's 1 or 2 distillation chambers, and the welding just finally got finished and they got cleaned out. And there'd been a pile of chips sitting there for a couple of weeks, because he's like, no, we're going to distill, and then things weren't ready.
Yeah.
And so he was itching, really, really itching to distill. And anyway, finally everything was ready. And it was even kind of late in the day when they finally got the steam turned on. But he's like, no, we're going tonight. I'm not going to wait another day. They got the chips loaded into the cooker, and then once they turned the steam on, everybody just kind of calmed down, because there was still stuff to do. But it was wow, we're actually going to produce some essential oil. And your dad went down, and there was kind of a short ladder, from what I remember. There's kind of a short ladder, and he just pulled the ladder over next to the
separator.
The separator. I wanted to say condenser. It's below the condenser. He just pulled the ladder over and kind of just leaned against the ladder, from what I remember, and he was just watching that glass on the top of the separator. He was just waiting for the first couple of drops of oil to bubble up through the water. And he just had this, really peaceful look on his face. And so I grabbed the camera. I usually have 2 cameras with me, one with a wide angle lens on it, and one with a telephoto lens. And so I just took a few steps back so he wouldn't really notice me. And he just looked really, really calm. He's like, because he'd worked all winter, and it's finally hey.
It was that big reward after working super hard.
Exactly. And he's just waiting for the magic to happen. And so I fired off a couple of shots. And I actually knew at the moment that I took them that they were iconic. I had no idea how they would end up getting used. But I even I remember getting back to the house that night and triple backing them up.
Just because
I was like, these are, because there's 2 or 3, or I probably shot 10 frames, but there was but after I shot them, I was reviewing them. I was like, wow, this is we're going to use these for sure. And the funny thing is, one of the reasons they didn't end up getting used until actually after your dad passed away was he didn't like them.
Yeah.
Because
he said he looked tired in them.
He does look tired.
He was very tired. Like he said, they were working all winter long. Yeah. From 4 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah. He said that the photos showed his wrinkles too much. And, but yeah, the reason he has those wrinkles is because, again, he just
hard work,
not enough sleep, a lot of time out in the sun, farming. All of the same things that really, characterized your dad.
For me, I love these stories, and I know everybody else listening loves these stories as well. And we would love and hope for you to come back and share some more stories, of my dad, maybe some of your own that you really enjoy. Is that possible?
Yeah. There's quite a few photos that were a lot of fun to take. Yeah, maybe I could dig up a few.
And have some fun stories connected to them as well, I bet.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll just hope to have you back soon and really appreciate you taking time out of your day to come onto the show and share a few of your stories and a few of your photos, and really appreciate your work and the photos that you've taken. It means a lot to all of us, including my family, and we just really appreciate you. So thank you, John.
Yeah, thanks, and you're welcome.
You've seen the picture and learned the story behind it. And now is your chance to own a part of Young Living's history. Today, you have a chance to win an 8.5 by 11 print of one of the most iconic shots of Gary Young. Along with the photo, you will receive a bottle of Gary's Light. Gary's Light is formulated to enlighten our minds to a greater awareness of truth and discernment. Certainly something we need today. So comment down below on this YouTube video, #photo, for your opportunity to win. Good luck. Now let's learn a little more about how Gary's Light and other essential oils come to be. A few weeks ago, we introduced Young Living's Seed to Seal commitment. To get caught up on any past episode, you can listen to our podcast archives on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. Look for the episode Essential Stories and the Seed, where we talk about the first pillar of Seed to Seal, sourcing. Today, we continue that journey of how your favorite essential oils get from the farm to your home with pillar number 2, science. And to help us all understand some of the technical aspects, we brought our Executive Director of Research and Development, Rich Carlson. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jacob. It's good to be here.
How you doing?
I'm well.
Yeah, everything going well down in research and development? It's been a while since I've been down there, so.
Yeah, we miss you down there. But everything is going well. Yeah, we've always got a lot of projects going on.
Oh, yeah.
And it's fun. It's the best place in the company to work.
I do miss it. So we talked about sourcing, and we talked about the seed and how to plant the seed and how to mature the seed. Now we want to get it to an essential oil. So what are the next steps with that?
Well, the next step to get it from the plant and to get the oil from the plant, in scientific terms, we say we do some sort of an extraction. We're moving what's in the plant away from that into another state. The best way to do that with essential oils is through a process called distillation. Let's talk a little bit about the process of steam distillation. Now, you grew up with steam distillation,
Yeah.
so this is nothing new to you, but a lot of our listeners out there might be curious to know how this process works. Basically, we take plant material, and usually we chop the plant material up into small pieces, into small chunks. If we're on one of our farm in Idaho and we have some conifer trees where we're going to make Idaho blue spruce oil or grand fir oil, we'll chop up those trees into fine pieces. So we'll take those small pieces and we'll put them in a basket. We'll put them in some sort of a container. And then underneath that basket, we have water. When that water gets hot, we'll get it hot enough that it will create steam. The end result is the steam will migrate, or it will pass through the plant material. And as it does that, that hot steam will interact with the plant, and it breaks those vacuoles that contain the essential oils.
Yep.
And the essential oil is entrained, or it's captured by the steam, and that travels up into the gas phase.
Yeah.
You know the next step. That
Goes
vapor,
into the gooseneck.
Right. That vapor goes into the gooseneck, and then it hits the condenser. Condenser is a fancy word for cold water.
Yep.
So we're lowering the temperature of the steam. And when that happens, that everything that's in the gas phase
Goes back into liquid form.
goes back into the liquid phase. We know that oil and water don't mix.
Yep.
So then it goes into the collector.
Yep.
And we can separate, or the separator, we use both terms. And it separates the oil and the water.
Yeah, it's great. It's very simple, and it's functional and it works great.
Right. Another common way to get essential oils from things that are different types of plants, resins from frankincense
Yep.
and myrrh are typically hydrodistilled. And I liken that up as to preparing pasta. The resin goes directly into the water, and then you heat that water up, and it gets hot and it boils, and then that resin releases the essential oil into the water. And then from there, it's the same. We separate the oil in the water. It goes through. We don't need a condenser at this point.
Yeah.
But we do keep a lid on it so we don't have those precious terpenes escape during the whole process.
So we have standard distillation, which is with the regular distiller and the gooseneck and condenser and separator. We have hydro distillation with frankincense for resin, and then we have a third one for our citruses. Well, not distillation, but another form of extracting oils as well.
Correct.
And what is that third process for our citruses?
The vacuoles in citrus are between the rind and the fruit. Mm-hmm. And if those of you that like to cook, if you talk about adding lemon zest or orange zest to a dish, you're releasing the essential oils.
Yep.
That's what we're doing. There are several different ways to do it, but it's basically the same thing. And some of them have fancy names, and I don't remember all the fancy names. One of the techniques is we have this machine, and whole fruit will in there, and it tumbles around, and as it tumbles around, it hits these little spikes. And it's constantly flushed with water. So as it hits those spikes, the oil gets released.
And this is a lot of high-tech equipment that we're using, and it's crazy to see just how far we've come since my father's first distillation, where he took pots, just pots out of your kitchen, the big deep pots,
right,
and welded 3 of those together, and that was the first cooker. The ingenuity and the creativity is just amazing, and that distiller you can actually see down in our D. Gary Young Museum here at Global Headquarters if you'd love to see that.
Your dad was a farmer. Farmers are some of the most creative and innovative people on the planet.
Yes, you are.
So that doesn't surprise me.
You are very, very right. So I don't think a lot of people realize that there's singles and there's blends. And what we mean by that is singles, right? Think of peppermint and lavender and goldenrod. They themselves are single essential oils.
One certain species that's been steam distilled and bottled for our enjoyment and our use.
Correct. And then you have blends, which is a combination, a blending of different oils mixed into one oil itself.
Correct. Which in itself is an art and a science. And I'd like to hear you talk about blend creation, because Young Living is the company that first started blending different single essential oils to create a blend. And we all know that Valor was the first blend. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
So as you know, my dad was always looking at different ways to, add and apply essential oils in different aspects of, the world, different aspects of aromatherapy. He's just trying to see what more could be done with these essential oils. And
I think he was also trying to harness nature's energy in a way that brought the benefits of multiple plants into one product.
Yes.
And so that it had a much better therapeutic benefit to a person rather than trying to give them a recipe. Well, put some lavender on, then put some Roman chamomile in, and so forth.
So to go along with that, one of the first things that he found as far as the first blend that he ever discovered, or I guess was known as a blend, is he was looking at different research papers from Europe while he was over in France with Jean Nouvel, and came across papers about these thieves, these grave robbers that were using a specific blend to keep them out of harm's way of the Black Plague at the time. And what had happened is these grave robbers were going around robbing people who had passed away from the plague, and they were robbing them of their jewelry and their clothing and stuff because they were buried with their belongings. And what the town at the time where the robbers were located could not figure out is how these robbers were not getting the plague themselves. And it was a mixture of clove, lemon, cinnamon bark, Eucalyptus radiata, and rosemary. And that blend itself, those oils are in a blend today. What my father made is now called Thieves essential oil. It is one of our most popular blends and one of our most well-known blends in the world. And
most copied.
Yes. And most copied.
And I don't think anybody's got it right, but
no,
everybody tries
has
to copy it and steal the name.
There's just an art to it.
Right. Anybody can throw a few oils together and shake it up.
Yep,
right?
correct.
But that doesn't mean it's going to be beneficial.
We could get really in depth as far as creating blends and the whole science behind it. And I'd love Rex to come on and talk about it because he's way better explaining it than I am.
The listeners can go on our website and we can see the I'm not sure how many blends we have. I think we have over 100.
I want to say it's close to that. And you're right. You can go on the website and you can see all the blends that are on there. You can see some of the science behind the blends as well.
And the website lists all the components of the blends. We don't tell you the percentage of each component, of course. That's our intellectual property rights.
Yes.
But you know what's in it.
You know what's in it, the purpose behind it. A lot of our blends and a lot of our oils, and all of them eventually, we're still working on getting it out there. We'll have research paper and science papers attached to it. You can scroll down and see that we have our research and science page info, and you can click on there and just find more information about the blends and the oils and the products themselves. And not all of them have it quite yet. We're still getting it out there. It's a lot of information to put out onto the website, but it is getting there. And I think it's just amazing that we have that.
Right.
Well, Richard, thank you so much for taking time to come up here and share your science and, well, not your science, but the science about, the products, Young Living, your knowledge behind it. You're an exceptional gentleman. I just as a human being, I really appreciate you and all that you do. I have such high respect for you as well, as you've taught me many, many things while I was in the research department. And I've learned a lot more things today as well. And so really appreciate you for coming on and sharing all that you had to share.
Thank you, Jacob.
And make sure to tune in a couple of weeks because we will be hitting our third pillar and our final pillar with our seed to seal process, which covers standards. Richard will be back on to cover a bit more about that, and we will have another gentleman joining us with that as well.
Okay.
Thanks again to Rich Carlson and to John Whetten. And finally, thanks to you for tuning into this episode of the YL Drop. Remember, you can listen on iTunes, Spotify, on YouTube, and Apple Podcasts, as well as our newly refurbished website at www.youngliving.com. Don't forget to oil up YL family. This is Jacob Young, dropping out.